This video will cause you to see spirits. Don't watch unless you want to connect with the spirit world. Hi, my name's August, and I teach people how to connect with the spirit world without all the woo and mystery. Welcome on into the live today. We're going to have an amazing, awesome class here today where I'm going to show you how you can instantly connect with the spirit world. So I'm going to need your involvement. Is that okay? Let me know down in the comments if you're willing to ask questions, because that's what it's going to take. I have to help you find your unique way of connecting. Everyone's different, so unless you're asking questions, I'm not going to be able to help you, because my videos, all of my content here on social media is designed to help you with that, okay? But I can't, without you responding, I don't know what I need to do next with you, okay? So welcome on in, everybody. Today, we are going to connect with the spirit world. You will connect with the spirit world here today. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me know where you're from when you jump in. Let me know what country you're watching from, what state you're watching from. Let me know any questions you have. I'm going to be going to the chat here soon, and I'll be answering some of your questions, okay? So please comment, like, share the live. The more that you interact with this live, the more the algorithm is going to show to more people. The more people that are here, the more questions are going to get asked, the more we're all going to learn, all right? So help me out, guys. Today, I think I'm just going to start with a few of the big things that are holding people back. That is, some of the big information that's out there that people talk about, that traditional spiritual teachers talk about you have to do in order to connect with the spirit world. And the biggest one, the number one thing that will hold you back is meditation. Yes, meditation. And I know this is such a controversial topic for me, right? I get a lot of heat when I tell people you don't have to meditate to connect with your spiritual abilities. And I'm going to explain to you why, right? And I'm not saying that meditation isn't helpful. It's just not helpful when you want to use it to connect with your spiritual abilities, to communicate with the spirit world, to communicate with your spirit guides, to read energy. It's just not helpful, because here's the thing. Meditation is going to get you into this like dissociative state, right? That's the point of meditation. I need to dissociate so hard that I'm not aware of where I am, who I am, or what's going on around me, right? That is the point of meditation. And so you can absolutely have an experience that way, but here's what it's going to look like. Any spirit wandering around that's in the area, right? Or even the spirit that you intend to connect with will come on in. Something will happen, right? If you're lucky, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but if you're lucky, you'll have a spirit wander on in into your meditation. And it's a passive experience because you're so dissociated, you're not grounded, you don't have any energy. It's just passive. The spirit's going to say what they have to say and then go on by. You won't be able to ask any questions. You can't really follow up. You can't engage really in any way, any kind of deep and meaningful way anyway, because you're so dissociated, all right? You don't know who you are, where you are, what's going on. You're just observing this experience, all right? As opposed to when you are grounded, right? Like I am right now, the way that I teach when I work with my students is that it takes less than 5 seconds, right? Really less than 3 seconds, where you can be standing here right now with me and boom, you're there, you're connected, you're talking to the spirit, you're having a flowing conversation, just like you're having with anyone else, all right? And when you're that grounded in that high energy, that's how it happens. That's how it happens. That's how it happens so fast. I don't have to go through this process where I'm sitting so uncomfortably still, and I've dissociated so hard I don't know what's going on. I don't have to go through any process, 45 minutes of meditation before it happens. No, I want to show you how to just go right into it, right? And just be there and be connecting. And when you are in that energy, in that grounded type of energy, what it allows you to do is to have a very active experience. You can talk to the spirit can answer you, then you can engage with that answer. You can ask new questions. You can ask for a hug from your loved one. You can ask your spirit guide to clarify. You can move into the energy of a decision and then look at the different outcomes of the decisions that you're going to make in your life, right? And choose a path, and then look at the different decisions along that path and really engage rather than meditate. Give me an insight, right? What is my next move, right? If you're looking into your own energy. And so that's the main difference with meditation and active connection, right? Dissociation versus, passive, I'm just an observer, versus active, I'm going to engage and work with this. Okay. And so I do want to make sure that I do say that meditation is not totally useless. It's just totally useless when you're using it to connect with your abilities. It's perfectly fine. It's a mental health tool, really. It will help you calm your nervous system, center yourself, feel re-energized, feel recharged, right? And kind of, if you're somebody that's prone to anxiety, it can really help you, or ADHD, it can really help you calm yourself in that moment if you're having a really hard day. And so it's helpful in that context, but please don't use it to connect with your abilities, because it's just gonna, if it happens for you, it's gonna be so passive, all right? So that's one thing. The other thing that that holds people back, that I see so many people wasting their time on, is like playing around with chakras, like trying to balance a chakra or do something with a chakra, or, open them up, close them down, clean them out, you name it. You guys know what you know where I'm going with this, right? Or you know what I'm talking about, at least. And here's the thing when it comes to chakras, right? We have these energy centers. There's, science has been able to detect, quite a few of them, more than 7. They're all out of our bodies, right? There's some out of our bodies. There's 7 that are in our bodies, and I think most of you guys will probably be familiar with what those are. But here's the thing. Our chakras they have their own divine energy, right? They don't need us to do anything, right? They're spinning, they're doing their thing, they're doing whatever they do, right? It's our own baggage and our own bullshit that gets in their way, that kind of like moves them out of alignment a little. All right. And yeah, we can go have the Reiki healer. We can try and balance them ourselves. We can do all of that stuff. And you will temporarily realign your chakras and feel better. But what happens an hour later or a day later, you feel like shit again, because what's happened is you never dealt with the baggage that you're carrying that threw them out of balance to begin with. All right. So if you're going to connect with the spirit world, don't even worry about doing anything with chakras, okay? Because if you feel that you need to do something, then you've got to do a different type of work, right? You got to get yourself to therapy. You got to do some shadow work. You've got to really clean up the stuff that's going on in your energy field, all right? And that's going to be the only thing that helps you realign a chakra, right? Yes, those other modalities can help you feel temporarily better, but nothing's going to get you to that place where you can connect, all right? And so, we can distill this all down into like one lesson, about chakras, is that the number one thing that you can do to create an environment that is conducive of bringing your spiritual abilities out at the highest level is to live an amazing life, to focus on what's going on in your life and fix it, the things you have control over. Right? To get out of that situation, to set that boundary, to go take the class that you've been meaning to take, to go, make the plan, to do the thing, to get out off of your ass and take action, right? Those are the things that are going to change your life. And in changing your life for the better, improving your quality of life, the level of your spiritual abilities are going to improve as well. All right. Let me go to the comments real quick and see if you guys have any questions so far. And what is this? We only have 477 likes. Guys, can you help me out here? I really need some help getting, pushing this live out to the algorithm. So if you could just like the live, comment, share it with your friends, that'd be great. I found that since mobile phones and Wi-Fi came home, my senses dimmed a lot. Yeah, mobile phones and Wi-Fi, I don't see the correlation there. It seems to have, it had no effect on me. I mean, I have an entire smart home. I got cameras, I got TVs, I got so much stuff wired up and Wi-Fi all over the place and extenders, and it doesn't affect me at all. The science has shown that the EMF and all of the things that are, emitted from that are negligible. Right, are negligible, right? The earth gives off more dangerous things going on with, as far as like frequencies and things that off gas than our Wi-Fi does. And so, I understand there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about that, but let me help you. And I did buy into a lot of that. Don't get me wrong. I did buy into a lot of that because you get caught up in that hive mentality. You can get caught up in that that collective energy of this is real. But what happened is when I started to look at the science, that's when it changed my mind and my energy shifted into awareness of what was actually happening. Okay. So if you stop listening to people on the internet that have no credentials, all right, and actually look into the science, right? Oh, but it's funded by big this and big that. No, go to the studies that aren't funded by that. There's plenty of them, all right? And so if you can expand your mind enough to not defer your sense making to somebody that's screaming from their mom's, basement, and making YouTube videos, that strike a nerve and go viral, then, the science can really help you there. Right. And listen, if you sit objectively and tune into it, you'll feel the truth. How do we connect if we can't relax our thoughts? This is really, really good because a lot of people struggle with this. Like, if your mind is racing and going crazy, how can you actually connect with anything? All right. And it's the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to take care of is that you do not battle your thoughts. All right. You don't battle your thoughts. You let them rip. You let them go on fire. You let them do what they have to do. And in between, so there's a couple ways to handle this. This is the first one. All right. Letting them rip, letting them do what they want to do. And what will happen is eventually they'll calm down. And then something will come. And that thing will come, and then your thoughts will go crazy, all over the place, and then they'll calm down, and then something else will come. And then your thoughts are gonna go, they'll calm down, and something else will come. So you're gonna have to get used to working in that pattern but you can train your mind to calm down in between these sessions, or in between, faster. All right. And the way that you do that, the way that I teach my students is that we have to come up with this agreement, all right, with the conscious mind, with the ADD brain, right? And we have to train it like it's a dog. All right. And, what we tell it is say, hey, I'm going to go connect right now. All right. And if you feel the need to bark and go crazy, I'm going to let you do that. But here's the thing, if you let me have this experience, as soon as I'm done, you can go crazy for hours and I won't stop you. And what's going to happen is your mind is going to get used to it, right? The dog knows that it's going to get fed if it sits, right? And so when you go to connect, you tell that dog to sit. And when you're done, you feed it. All right. And that's the easiest way to train your brain, to train your thoughts to kind of relax. All right. Is, first by letting them go. Stop trying to fight them. If they come up, then let them come up. But literally tell yourself, have a conversation with yourself, your brain, the part of your brain where you feel it, right? I'm ADHD too, and I feel it in my brain. I feel where that part is, right? It's in the front. Right? I feel where that thing wants to just let my thoughts rip. And, when I was trying to do all of this and learn how to connect with the spirit world, I literally talked to that part of my brain and I said, look, dude, just wait. Please, just wait. And it worked. No problem connecting now. Right? And in the meantime, just let your thoughts go crazy. Was that helpful? Was that helpful? I hope so. I don't understand that question. Not if you're on the spectrum. Yeah, it works if you're on the spectrum too. I mean, it's actually what I've taught my daughter who's on the spectrum, and I've worked with plenty of people with autism. This is dismissive to people's lived experience. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there. If I've been dismissive in any way, can you please clarify? Because it probably was a misunderstanding. I used to have out-of-body experiences until I got Wi-Fi. turn your Wi-Fi off and see what happens. See if it changes anything. I don't think it has to do with Wi-Fi though. I think that it might have more to do with your beliefs about Wi-Fi, but turn it off and see what happens. I used to see faces every time I tried to sleep. Do you hear or see things? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody can. Everybody can connect with the spirit world. Everybody can hear and see things. Listen, we have, so everybody can see, can hear, can connect, right? We can talk all of these fancy words, clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience, clear whatever, right? We have all of those, but let's simplify it real quick. We all have the ability to see energy. We have the ability to hear energy. We have the ability to feel energy. All right, we have the ability to get a knowing through energy. We have the ability to feel emotion of energy, empathy, right? We have the ability to get a taste signal from energy. We have the ability to get a smell signal from energy. See, hear, feel, know, empathy, taste, and smell. We all have those. These are innate abilities. Everybody has those, right? If you're walking around saying, oh, I'm clairvoyant, well, you're limiting yourself to your 6 other abilities because you have all of it, okay? And so, what I have found is the best way to bring all of those abilities online, right? If you're walking around saying, oh, I'm clairvoyant, that just means that your sense of seeing is a little bit easier than the other ones right now, all right? And so what I have found, whenever I work with somebody that has that belief, oh, I'm clairvoyant, what I say is, okay, let's just set that down, right? And let's just say your clairvoyance or your ability to see spirit is the best thing that you have going on right now. And what happens is now when we walk into an experience, we're not just thinking we're going to see things, we're open to other things happening. And so what usually happens when I work with my students is the image will bring a sound. Now we're hearing things. The sound will bring a feeling. Now we're seeing, hearing, and feeling, right? And then the feeling's going to bring this knowing. Now we're seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. And that knowing's going to bring an emotion. Now we're seeing, hearing, feeling, and using empathy. And that emotion's going to remind us of grandma's pie. Now we're smelling and tasting grandma's pie. Seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing, right? And so you have this immersive experience when you just drop the expectation of, I have this one thing, okay? We have them all, and that's the way our abilities work, is we, when I go to connect, all right, when I go to connect, hold on, let me see, I got a message. Okay. So that's not important. So when I go to connect, I don't expect it to happen in any way. The way that it usually works for me, I will say most of the time, is I get an image. I get a vision, right? Either it's an image, partial image, or it's like a 5 to 10 second movie clip, all right? That's what happens for me. And then I start to hear things, then now I feel things, and now I start getting all these downloads, the knowing, right? And then it all just goes immersive from there. And it's like instantly, right? It all happens at once. It's not this process that just kind of like, flow through, right? It's not something that I consciously, okay, now I'm gonna just feel for it, right? No, it's just something that happens, right? And I'm not special, right? I want to be clear about that. I'm not special. I'm no different than you. If I can experience it this way, anyone can, all right? I didn't even believe in this shit years ago, all right, until I had my awakening. All right, I thought this was for crazy people, right? And so if I can do this, anyone can, all right? But here's the thing. So it turns into this immersive experience, all right? So the bottom line, the point I'm trying to make, right, is just let go of the assumptions that you have one thing or another and allow it to flow in any way that it comes, right? Because sometimes I do get that knowing. And then that turns into the vision, that turns into the hearing, right? Or I can't tell you how many times, because I love to connect with spirits all over the place, right? I'll walk around and want to connect with spirits. And so I can't tell you how many times I've been walking around and I'm like, ooh, I feel that over there. And then boom, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm talking, we're having a conversation. Or, I was in St. Augustine this past winter, right? And I was walking around and I could smell like like tobacco everywhere, right? I could smell tobacco wherever I was walking, right? And nobody was smoking, places that I was alone by myself, right? And so I would go and connect, and I would, connect with these people, these spirits that were there. And so it can happen in any which way. All those thoughts bring feelings. What to do with so many feelings bouncing around? Let them tell the story that they need to tell. That's all there is to it. If you're getting a bunch of feelings, let them flow through you. And give them words, right? So that's actually something that you remind me of, something that's going to be really helpful for many of you, right? Because a lot of you, one of the things, like all my feelers, who's my feelers, right? Who out there are feelers, can just feel stuff, right? Let me know in the comments. This is going to help you. This is going to be a game changer for you. All right. So all of you out there that are feeling, that can feel different types of energy, different types of emotion, maybe even get physical sensations, but that's all that you're really able to get. That's great. That's wonderful. But here's how you can turn it into something more. All right. So when you're feeling and all of these things are coming up, if you just let them give these feelings words, right? Like, what is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling right. And here's the cue that you can give yourself. I'm feeling as if. Right? And then the blank will almost fill itself in when you're feeling, right? I'm feeling as if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and I'm looking at the world, right? Oh, cool. Now we have a vision. Right? Now we have a vision. Now we've got something to work with here. All right. Well, oh, there's a cliff over there. Is that the spirit looking at me? Right? And so when you're feeling whatever you're feeling and you give it words, like, I feel this expansiveness in my chest. It's kind of like I want to float up, right? And then we look up and there's angels, or there's light beings, or there's something going on, right? And so if you can give the feelings words, the feelings will speak, and you're going to start to, like I mentioned earlier, things are going to turn into your other abilities are going to automatically come online. The feeling's going to give some sounds, going to give some words, going to get you some knowings, going to get you a vision, and it's just going to be a full immersive experience from there. And that's what we're going for, right? We're not just going for like broken sentences, fragmented visions, this random download. We're not going for that. We're going for a full sensory experience. That's what happens when you discover your unique way of connecting. You go there, right? It's like this wave of energy picks you up and you're just like floating along, and everything's coming, everything's flowing. It's effortless. You're not even having to do anything or think about it. It's just natural. All right. And that's how we get into that situation. Hey, Chris, how's it going? All the Claires. Yeah, I don't use, so there's terminology that I don't use, right? I guess I can go and explain some of that. I just learned about CES meditation. I don't know what that is. Yeah, you can ask me a question. If you guys have a question, just ask it. You don't have to ask a question. Jump on in here. Is there times when you can't connect? How would you handle it? Yeah, so there are times that your emotional state can sometimes make it harder to connect. All right, and the last time I can tell you where it was really difficult for me to connect is sometimes when it's personal too. Right. So my uncle passed several years ago. And when I first learned of his passing, right, I had been sensing a spirit for a couple of days. He had been dead for a few days and I didn't know about it. I'd been sensing a spirit, but I just was like, I wasn't paying attention. All right. So when I learned of his passing, I realized that it was him. And so I immediately wanted to connect with him, right? I mean, in the grief and the shock of it, I'm trying to connect with him and I'm so nervous. I can't do it. Nothing's happening. I can't feel him again, and it's just like in that deep emotional grief, right? When you first find out, there's nothing you can do. All right. And there was nothing I could do either. And so you know, in that moment, like I was so desperate, I needed to feel him. I needed to do it. I couldn't, I can't believe I'm in that shock, and that all of that energy stops it. Right. And so in that moment, right, I came back to like, and it's every time I have difficulty, I come back to this question: what would I tell my students to do? And the answer to that is surrender to the grief. And so I did. You know, I laid on the bed, I curled up in a ball, and I just cried. And I listened to my body, what it wanted to do, and I got angry, and, you know, I was punching pillows, and, you know, I was flailing around with my body. I was doing everything, screaming. I just surrendered to what my body was telling me it needed, and I just let it do its thing. And once that initial shock got over, like took like a good hour. You know, and once all of that let down, you know, and I got all of that energy out of my body, you know, I had come down from that peak of that grief, right? And I came down into a trough, right? Because the grief comes in waves. And so I was down in one of those troughs, and I was asking him to come, and I couldn't feel it. And again, I asked myself, so what would I tell my students? Well, just try and feel the best that you can right now. And so I got up and I went for a walk. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was walking around, and, you know, I forgot about it for like a split second. Forgot about it. Like not even a split second, right? It was just like I blinked and I looked at something else, right? And that's all it took. I felt him come up behind me, put his hands on my shoulders, and he said, "Hey." And we had an amazing, beautiful conversation after that, very healing conversation. All right, so I tell you this story because, yeah, there are times we can't connect, right? There are times that are like that, you know, outside of that emotional state, right? If you're in the middle of like being super pissed off, like any kind of extreme emotion, let's put it that way. Any kind of extreme emotional state will prevent you from connecting. And I'm not talking about subtle, right? I'm not, because even though I was talking to my uncle, even though I was there communicating, I was still very sad. I was still grieving. I just wasn't at peak emotional state. Oh, so I was going to tell you guys, so about some of the terminology I use and that I don't like to use, you know, and I just want to clarify a few things because, you know, words are very important. It's how we communicate. All right. And I think that the more that we can simplify things, the more that the words we speak actually convey meaning and knowledge. So, you know, like I mentioned earlier, some of the stuff the words that I don't use any of the clair words, you know, clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, clair everything. I don't use any of those because what does that mean? If you don't know, you have to go look up the meaning, right? And even if you look up the meaning, it's still this couple sentences long. But when I say you're seeing the spirit world or you're seeing energy, instead of saying you're using your clairvoyance to connect with the spirit, it conveys, it's stronger, right? Because it's simple. That simplicity conveys the meaning and the knowledge behind it, all right? And so that's why I use seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, empathy, taste, and smell. All right, you can call them clair whatever you want, but when I talk, that's what I use, okay? And if you ever hear me use the clair word, it's simply to connect with somebody that uses those words. And that goes for everything, right? If you ever hear me say something that I'm about to describe in one of my videos or in a video description, you know, I'm only using it to connect with my audience, all right? That's it, because some people only know it through that. All right, the other thing that I don't use is labels. I don't call myself a medium. I don't call myself an intuitive. I don't call myself a psychic. I don't call myself a shaman. I don't call myself any of those labels because it tends to put people like on these pedestals, right? I don't use anything like that because I don't believe that I'm special. I don't believe that and it's not that I don't believe, I know that I'm no different than you. There is no spiritual hierarchy. And that brings me to the next thing. That's why I don't use terminology like angels, right? Or ascended masters or archangels, right? That tells us, or higher dimensional beings, right? That just tells us that there's this hierarchy of people or spirits that are more evolved than us spiritually. And that's just not true. We are spiritually evolved as any other spirit on this planet or any other spirit in existence anywhere. All right. But we happen to be here in the physical dimension in the school of all that is, all right? And we're here learning different things, but if we project our awareness into those non-physical realms where we also exist, you'll see that we have access to infinite intelligence. And that's why when we connect with our abilities, we can tap in and get the answers to anything that we want. You don't have to read another book. You don't have to talk to anybody about anything. You just channel, right? And that's what happens a lot of times on these lives. I'm on the spot, or when I'm doing a lecture, or when I'm speaking somewhere, I'll get a question asked that I don't know the answer to, and I'll need to channel it. All right. And I have, as the years have gone by, I do that less, because rather than me channel it and give you the answer, my path has been, well, let me help you channel it and get the answer so you don't ever have to ask another question. All right. And so anyway, I kind of got a little off topic. So that's the thing, is I'm not, delineating different spirits, right? I might say loved one and spirit guide, and that's it. Loved one, spirit guide, or spiritual being, right? I might use those three terms, but I'm not talking about different hierarchies, right? Because the angels, they're just labels these different traditions have given things. All right. So I'm not using labels. Let's see, what else? Oh, spiritual gifts. I don't like using the term gift, because these are abilities that everyone has. Gift means that I'm special. I have things that you don't, right? And that's not the case. Everybody has these things, all right? And, so those are some of the things that I don't agree with, as far as the way that I talk and the way that I communicate. Another thing that I don't believe is that we are on different frequencies, right? I had somebody make this comment the other day, right? When I talked about what it's like to see spirits. They're like, well, some people are on different frequencies and see things that others can't. And that's not true. We all at the core emit the same frequency, and it fluctuates and it changes. Your frequency is your emotional state. If you're happy one day and depressed the next, you had a lower frequency when you were depressed than you did when you were happy. Your frequency is lower, right? And so when we talk about vibration and frequency, that's all it means is, how are we feeling? Right? You want to raise your vibration? Just get in a better feeling mood. There's nothing that's special that you have to do. You see how, the point I'm trying to make is how traditional spirituality complicates things and creates a hierarchy, so it separates people from the ones that are doing the work versus the ones that think that they can't. So they have to go to the ones that are doing the work because they are special. And so it creates this codependent relationship of people, and it creates unrealistic expectations too, because, they hear the rhetoric of, so many people hear the rhetoric of traditional spirituality, and they set unrealistic expectations and end up believing that they just can't do it. That person that they're watching on the other side of the screen is special, is different than them, and that they can do things that I cannot, right? Or that the person watching cannot. Right? And so that's really the point that I'm trying to make, is if we break away from all the labels, then we level the playing field as it truly is, right? And then there's that barrier that lowers, right? Because I can't tell you how many people that'll come in for an interview, right? And they'll be like, oh, well, there's this that's holding back. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can go this place. I don't think I can go that place. And it's just like, wow. Why? And it's because they've been watching all of these mediums, professional mediums on social media and reading books and doing all this other stuff that tells them that they can't do this, or they've got to practice for a long time, or that the medium was born with it, or that they're special in some way. And so, that's when I start to work with people, that's one of the things that we have to freaking break through, that we shouldn't even have to. Like, I love working with people that are total beginners, that show up and be like, You're the first person I've ever heard talk about this. It's so easy because we don't have to deal with all the other beliefs that hold people back. But I can tell you, once we address those beliefs, and I don't even really address them. I'm just like, look, come in, let's try this. And then you let the experience tell me if you need all that other shit. Guys, I see you all for the follows and the likes. I appreciate all of that stuff. Yeah, if you can just continue to like the live, it really will help. The more likes that this thing gets, the more comments, the more engaged that you are with this live, the more that the algorithm's going to send it out, and the more people that are going to be able to get this information that need it. What happened to me to get tuned in? 13 years of blood, sweat, and tears. You guys want to know my story? I talk about it on here sometimes. I think I got a video somewhere about it. You guys want to know my story? How I got involved in all of this and where I am, how I got to where I am today? Let me know. Because I don't want to talk about me. I'd rather help you guys. But if you're interested in my story, if we get, let's say, all right, so prove it to me. We're at 16,700 likes. If we get to 20,000 likes, I'll tell you my story. That means that everybody wants to see it. Or everybody wants to hear about it. I'll answer questions in the meantime. Some good questions in here. I don't even know how to pick. Oh, Missy says, I'm so open. I get spirits trying to contact me at night, which they stop me from sleeping. Man, I had that same problem. I had that same problem for a while. And, I solved it immediately once I knew how to do this. Once I knew how to set boundaries with the spirit world. Listen, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have these deceased Indian gurus standing at the foot of my bed trying to tell me things and speaking in Hindi. I had no idea what they were saying, right? And so, and I would connect with them, and then we would get through the language, the barrier, because the energy is what communicates, not the language. And so they would tell me what was going on, and, they would have these messages, and we'd have this conversation, and I'm like, dude, can you, talk to me in normal hours, right? And then I had the insight. I was like, oh, I need to set business hours. And so, it's kind of this energetic boundary that I set with the spirit world. Listen, my room is off limits. You're not allowed in here. And I will only connect with you during the day when I can give you my full undivided attention. Like if a spirit came in right now, I would say, hey, wait till the live is over, right? Because I'm with you. Or if I'm out with my kids, I would say, hey, we'll come back and we'll connect. All right. And so once I set those boundaries, it's kind of like my energy is emanating that now, and now I get left alone. No, spirits don't bother me unless I want to engage with them, unless I'm out, which I want to do it all the time, right? To be honest, I do. I walk around looking for spirits trying to connect, everywhere I go. And a lot of times I can't help but feel them, and then I'm just like, oh, let's talk. Oh, wow. So we did. We got to 21,000 likes. All right, guys. All right, so I guess we're going to talk about my story. You don't read, you just talk. Yeah, because I don't want to be, that's kind of rude. I want to teach you how to do it. So, goodbye. No. All right. All right. So, what are the physical symptoms of a spiritual awakening? I would say that the symptoms there really are no physical symptoms. You just look in your life. Is your life falling apart? Because that's usually what happens. There's some huge traumatic experience. No, I'm not on Discord. Yeah, I got rid of the spammer. Thank you, guys. Hey, Tanya. All right. So you guys want to hear about my story, obviously, because you guys got the likes up like crazy. We got to 20,000. All right. Let me get a sip of water. It's kind of a long story, but I will, I'll tell you how I got here. How I'm on this live right now talking to you guys. So it all started for me, I'll just say I grew up, very positive, always into self-development. I started my first business when I was 18. I was a very successful entrepreneur, had several companies in my early 20s. I was doing very well for myself. I had a family. I had 2 boys, a daughter. I was engaged. And then my whole life crumbled when my fiance had broken up with me. And so that was a very deep that was my awakening, right? It was such an raw and emotional, distraught state that I was going through it the day of the breakup. And I was at home by myself. And I look over and there's 2 spirits that have physically manifested themselves in my living room. And I thought to myself, holy shit, I've lost my mind. So I look away and I tell myself, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. And I look over and they're still standing there. And one of the spirits is about 8 foot tall, leaned forward and said, no, we're real and we need to talk. And I said, fuck that. And I ran out of my house. Scared, never been so scared in my life. I've never experienced anything like that, even close, up until that time. All right. No, I didn't grow up experiencing things, talking to the spirit world, none of that. I didn't even believe in any of it until that day. All right. And even when that happened, I still didn't believe in it. I thought I was losing my mind. So I run out of my house. I do the only thing that I know how to do. And I call my therapist. I was in therapy at the time. And I said, look, you want to meet me at the hospital? I'm losing my mind. And she said, no, why don't you come in? And this was in the evening. She said, why don't you come in? I just finished up for the day. And so I go in. And we're talking and I'm telling her what's going on. And, she's quiet for a minute and I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I'm going to be committed. And she goes, you're not in psychosis. There's nothing wrong with you. You're having a spiritual awakening. And I had never heard anything like that before. And so my reaction was, well, how do I get rid of it? How do I stop it? And so to make a long story short here, what ended up happening for the next hour, we just had this talk. And lo and behold, this counselor, this licensed mental health counselor that I had selected out of all the counselors that I had interviewed happened to be deeply involved in the spiritual community. And so she talked to me about mediumship. She talked to me about the spirit world. She talked to me about the afterlife. She talked to me about all of these esoteric subjects and told me about spiritual awakening. And I said, okay, I understand, but I'm still very unsettled. And at the end of it, I knew, I was like, everything's going to be okay. I felt this pull inside of me. I was like, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. I know that, even though I'm nervous, I'm scared, that this is my path. And so I went home that night, and the spirits weren't there anymore. Everything was good, so I went to sleep. Then I wake up the next day, and I can't see the spirits, but I can feel them. Except this time, I could feel their intentions. I could feel how much they loved me. I could feel how much they were wanting to help me. I could feel how excited they were that I could sense them. All right? And looking back in hindsight, these were a couple of spirit guides that showed up for me. All right? But so what ended up happening is these spirits told me, started talking to me and giving me all this information, right? I got notebooks and I'm filling up notebooks of information. They're talking to me about my past. They're talking to me about the future. They're talking to me about things that are going on in my life right now. It was all about me, right? And which was very unsettling. I had no idea how these beings, I didn't know how I was communicating. I didn't know how I heard them. I didn't know how I was talking back to them. I didn't know anything. This went on for 3 days. And I filled up 4 or 5 notebooks full of notes. All right. And also during these 3 days at different times when I wasn't talking to these spirit guides, every person that I had known up until that point that had passed had came and visit me. Right? They'd come to just kind of check in. They were talking to me. They were telling me about what they're up to in the spirit world. They were talking about, some were reconciling, right? I had friends that passed where, it was sudden. We had some things going on in between, right? I had family come to me. I had all of these amazing, beautiful experiences with people that I knew that had passed. So like I said, this had gone on. All of this is happening for 3 days. I have no idea how it's happening. I don't know how I'm communicating. I don't know at all. And so I went to sleep at the end of that 3rd day. I woke up in the morning and it was all gone. I couldn't do it. I didn't know if these beings had left, but I couldn't sense the spirit world anymore like I was able to do for those 3 days. Because I was feeling all kinds of spirits, not just my friends, families, and spirit guides, but I would go to the store and I would feel the spirits in there. I would see people's loved ones standing next to them, and so, but that 4th morning I woke up and it was all gone. I couldn't do it. And so for a few days I was like, all right, maybe it'll come back. Maybe something will happen. And so I was reading, I was researching, I was looking at things, I was trying to understand what was happening, and it didn't come out, right? It didn't come back. So about a week later is when my spiritual journey really began, okay? I dedicated myself to figuring it out, all right? And so for the next 2 years after that, I did nothing but explore spirituality. Okay, I had a business at the time that, I put a manager in place, and then I traveled the world. I traveled the world going to spiritual retreats. I traveled the world mentoring directly with many of the famous mediums that are out there today. I went to the Arthur Findlay College in the UK, just this world-renowned psychic and mediumship school. I did everything that you're supposed to do. I was reading like 2 or 3 books a week, meditation retreats, Vipassana. I was doing it all. Chakra classes, Reiki, energy work. For 2 years, everything, okay? And at the end of those 2 years, I remember the last thing I did was I went to the Arthur Findlay College in the UK, and I came back, and that was like the holy grail. Everybody talked about, you go there, you're good. And I got back, and I was so discouraged. I was like, I had some cool experiences. I met some people, but nothing. I was not able to connect anywhere even close to the way that I was communicating those first 3 days. And I was really discouraged. I was like, why? Why is this happening? How come? Can't anybody show me how to do it like that? Right? And so I was ready to give up, and quite frankly, a little bit of inspiration for those of you that are ready to give up too. If I did not have that undeniable experience in the beginning with those 2 spirits in those 3 days, I would have given up at that point. I would have, because I had done everything that I had read about that you're supposed to do. All right. But I couldn't deny it. I couldn't let go of those experiences. So ultimately I came into the decision. I was like, well, fuck it. None of this stuff is working. I'm just going to throw it all out. I'm going to forget these past 2 years, because I was able to have a way deeper experience, right? When I didn't know shit, when I didn't know anything, when I didn't know about a chakra, when I never meditated, when I brushed my teeth with fluoride, when I didn't even know what a third eye was, where I smoked cigarettes and ate like shit and drank alcohol, right? That was my state when I had that amazing, wonderful experience. I didn't know anything, all right? And so what I decided to do is put my brain to work, right? I'm really good at solving problems, all right? And so I decided I'm just gonna analyze those 3 days. I'm just going to reflect. I'm just going to think. I'm going to try and figure out how it was happening. And so that's what I did. For weeks, I just obsessed over those 3 days, thinking to myself, what was I feeling when I was talking? How exactly was I hearing them when they were talking back to me? What did my body feel? What did my heart feel? And I started to get these insights, right? The harder I reflected, the more that I obsessed over those first 3 days, the more insights that would come, all right? And so what I started to do is experiment with these insights. All right. And I started to have more experiences then, right? That weren't as good, but I started to have really legitimate experiences at that point. And now I had new experience to obsess over and to fixate on and to really figure out. And then I would have more, right? And so it was this pattern of experience, insight, experience, insight, experience, insight. And it was really like 6 years of blood, sweat, and tears and grueling experiments, doing nothing but connecting with the spirit world. And then or reflecting on these insights and experimenting. And then after 6 years, the insight that came through that changed everything is, this is fucking simple. This is way easier than anything anyone has ever talked about that I have found. And then from that point, everything changed. Once I approached it from this is simple and easy, let me get rid of the woo, let me strip all of this away, let me do it the way that I talk to you guys about, right? I talk to you the way that I wish I could have found somebody to talk to me when I was in that stage, all right? When I was right where you are, frustrated, ready to give up, all right? And so for the next 3 years, I proceeded to experiment more and I perfected it. And I got to a place where I could instantly connect with any spirit at any time, whenever I want, have a clear, flowing, undeniable conversation, full body experience, not just with the spirit world, but also, connecting with energy, reading people's energy, reading the energy of my decisions, right? That changed the quality of my life. My abilities changed the quality of my life more than anything else, because that one thing, being able to read the energy of my decisions, changed my life more than anything. All right. So anyway, so I got to that place. Took me 9 years to get there. Okay. And then I was like, cool, this is awesome. This is amazing. I'm done. I'm just going to go about my life and I'm going to hang out with my family and I'm just going to do my thing. This is beautiful. Right? And one of the things that I was really passionate about was, I would go around to the spiritual community here locally in my area. And, I would do the things. I loved going and doing the crystal bowl meditations. I loved the Himalayan bowls. I loved connecting with people at these events, right? I'm not telling you that all of the woo and mystery is something that I don't enjoy, because I do. And so I would go to these events. I would learn about the different traditions. I would learn about the different religions. I would learn about Buddhism. I was learning, right? And I enjoyed going out to all of those events, all right? Even though I knew that we didn't need any of that for our abilities, I still enjoyed the beauty of the traditions and culture, all right? And so what ended up happening is, as I was going to these things, just minding my business, living my best life, right? After these events, I would talk with people that were there and, I'd tell a little bit about what I'm experiencing with the spirit world and, how I'm using energy and reading energy. And I talk about my spiritual abilities and how I'm connecting. And, some of these people would go and, do whatever they would do, and they would come back. I'd see them at different events and they'd be like, August, we were trying those things that you were talking about and they're kind of working for us. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so I kept hearing that. I kept hearing more of that. And then, I would talk. So more people would find out, more people would want to talk to me after these events. And so, it kind of snowballed into this thing where I would kind of do a lecture at the end of one of these events. And, time and time again, people would come back and be like, we did those things that you taught us and it worked. And I was like, whoa, I'm not teaching, right? I didn't teach anything. I just talked about my experiences. And they're like, well, the way that you talked about it, we went and did it too, and it's working. Can you please teach us how to do this even deeper? Can you hold a workshop? And I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. Not at all. And so I enjoyed my life. I didn't want to take on anything else. And it took 2 years for everybody to kind of pressure me into it. I caved, I folded. I held my first workshop 11 years after my awakening, all right? And about 20 people showed up. And the way that I did this, I wanted to really help people that had lost somebody and that were struggling with grief. And so that's what the workshop was about. It was about connecting with a past loved one. And so what ended up happening was 20 people showed up. Had no idea what I was going to do, had no idea how to teach this, but apparently by telling my story, people learned something, okay? So these 20 people showed up. I was scared to death. I was ready to run out of the room. I didn't think anything was going to happen. Thought I was going to make a fool of myself. So I ended up just talking about my experiences, right? I talked about, I was having experiences all the time back then, right? Where now I'm kind of a little bit busy with you guys and other stuff. I still have experiences all the time, but not like then, all right? And so I would just I had plenty of stories to tell. And so I would just tell my stories about the different things that I was experiencing. And, after about an hour of me talking, I was like, all right, you guys pair up with each other and now you try, read for, one of you pick who's going to read and you do a reading for the other person and then switch, right? And if one of your own loved ones happen to come through for yourself, then cool, just go with it. Whatever happens, just try something, right? That literally was the extent of my teaching. And so I'm sitting there, everybody loud, moving chairs around, they get settled, and then dead silence. Dead silence, nothing happens, right? And I'm sitting there, 30 seconds in, a minute and 30 seconds, 2 minutes in, and I'm like looking at the door, getting ready to run out of the room. And then all of a sudden, one of the women in the back spoke up, and she started to describe in great detail a spirit that was standing behind the person she was reading for. She was talking about appearance. She was talking about hair. She was talking about facial expressions. She was talking about jewelry. She was talking about clothes that she was wearing. Great detail explaining this. And I saw the spirit there too. And I was like, wow, this is really working. And the woman she was reading for just broke down in tears and said, "That's my sister." And before I could actually take in what was happening, the whole room started talking. Everybody was channeling a spirit. And I just walked around with amazement. I just walked around with amazed. And then, there would be people that would kind of struggle. I would kneel down next to them and kind of help them. They would get into it. The partner would start crying. I would start crying. The person reading would start crying. I'd go on to the next person, right? And so for an hour and a half, I walked around. This was my experience. I couldn't believe that it was happening. All right. So fast forward to the end of the workshop, it all ended. And people were talking to me afterwards, telling me how it was amazing. It was an awesome experience, life-changing. They really appreciate it. Really, really cool. Wanted to know when I was going to do my next one and where they can find me. And literally, I didn't have any of that stuff. This was just like a one-off event. I wasn't going to do it again. And so I got all that feedback. And there was one woman who sat in the back of the room. She waited till everybody left. And once they did, she came up to me and she said, "Thank you so much for this." She goes, "I lost my husband tragically 20 years ago. And I needed to know if he was still in pain. She's like, I have been so struggling with that one question. Been so afraid that he has been suffering on the other side that I have not been able to move on with my life. I barely get out of bed. I have been struggling. This was my last resort." She is like, "I just didn't even want to be here anymore. I was getting ready to find out." She was getting ready to, And so she tells me, and then she goes on to tell me, she's like, "I want you to know that this one workshop snapped me out of all of that because I connected with my husband without a shadow of a doubt. He told me 100% that he was never in pain, that he crossed over perfectly fine, and that he's been watching over me ever since. He was talking to me about things that were going on in my life. He was talking about helping me through some of the struggles that I was having. And I actually felt him when he was there, but I would brush it off. And he confirmed every one of those times that I did feel him, and I did sense him, and I did brush it off. He talked to me about things that were going on in my life right now in great detail. He talked about how we can actually connect and continue to have this relationship, how he wanted me to stay here, how he wanted to help me, how he wanted me to move on and meet somebody else. And just this, I'm crying, right? I'm full tears as she's talking, right? And she says, she hugs me and she goes, "Thank you. Please keep doing this. People need it." And she left, and I knew right there, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here.